So how did you meet Kid Christopher Reed, and how did the name Kid and Play come about?
Kid was somebody I began to notice from afar. We had a mutual friend by the name of Romeo, Jerome Doss, who played a lot of basketball, and Kid played ball. I didn't play ball. I'm not athletically inclined at all, and neither do I want to be. And even at the time, but during the daytime, him and Kid would be playing ball in favorite park that everybody went to, and I wouldn't come out till like we're talking summertime or even winter, but in particular when I tell this part, summertime, I wouldn't really come out until the sun started going down because it was crazy hot. We had our heat waves and stuff. And plus, I didn't want to be all sweated up in whatever gear that I felt good about every day. So when I came to the park to meet up with Rome, Kid would be leaving because his father was really, really tight, was really, really, what do you call it?
Strict.
Very strict. So he had to go home. And then I'd take over. My shift would be with our dude, Rome, and we'd hang out all hours of the night, be up to no good, all of that kind of stuff. So eventually, as time went on, Kids started hanging out more. I started getting somewhat impressed with him because no matter what he looked like, which he'll even tell you himself, very nerd-like, very thick glasses he had to wear, afro, light skin, almost white, but he always had on the tightest gear, whether it be Adidas, back then was the Jordache or the Calvin Klein jeans. His game was tight for a nerd, and, after a while, it just got to the point where we just started hanging out, especially if Rome wasn't around. And I began to find him intriguing because the way he talked, words he used and stuff, I saw an opportunity in that to use those words to be able to engage with a different class of women now, or girls. And the same thing running game in the streets. It could make you exceptional. There was a cat, the Intelligent Hoodlum from Queensbridge. That was his thing back in the days. He was called the Intelligent Hoodlum, part of that whole Queensbridge crowd in Queens. But yeah, I just wanted to be able to be diverse, knowledgeable, for whatever I was up to at the time, to be as diverse as possible.
Okay. So how did y'all get your record deal? I would say that.
It wasn't an overnight process. We used to be called Fresh Force. We did what you called cover records back then. Run DMC had a big record out back then called My Adidas. We did a record that did really, really good in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia. And believe it or not, Ohio. But it was called She's a Skeezer, or My Skeezer, I'm sorry. Yeah, and we used the My Adidas beat. We did a parody. It was pretty much what you call a parody. Not a cover record, like a parody of another hit record. That began to be kind of popular then, that whatever big record was out, somebody would do a parody of it. There was another record out by Falco called Rock Me Amadeus. We did a record called Rock Me. That did really good. We had an original cut called All Hail the Drum. That did good. So the very favorite top hip hop clubs back then, we were regulars, and people loved us. We had hits in those areas, which was the only areas or cities and states that even counted in, because nobody else was recognizing what would be called hip hop. So just as long as New York was loving us, Jersey was loving us, especially Philly. No one gives Philly really the credit they're due. Philadelphia was responsible for breaking hip hop on mainstream radio first before New York did. So they showed us love. And like I said, believe it or not, Ohio, that place showed us love. We did a lot of gigs out there. It was interesting. So with all that being said, is that then when at the same time, pretty much simultaneously, our other childhood friend, Herbie Lovebug, was working on a school project, and that project would be known as Salt and Pepper. But back then they were called the Super Nature MCs. Yeah. They weren't called Salt and Pepper at first. It was only out of a record company dispute. And the fact that when people heard the record, it was called the Showstopper. It was an answer. Like I said, doing mock records, their record was from Dougie Fresh and Slick Rick's The Show, but theirs was called the Showstopper. So there's a record in there. I mean, there's a rhyme in there that said we're the Salt and Pepper MCs, but it was just a rap. They weren't saying that was their names. So for some reason, audiences or listeners, the name Supernatural MCs didn't take. They just remembered that rhyme saying we're the Salt and Pepper MCs, and that's how they became Salt and Pepper. So from that, then it was time for us. We were running our course. We were on the label Sutra Records, which was the same record label that the Fat Boys was on. We ran our course with them. Herbie had a hit. Record companies was coming at him, wanting to know what was next. Did he have any other groups, any other things down the pike? Lo and behold, his childhood friends that we were all still tight is Kid and Play. So we changed the name from Fresh Force to Kid and Play and had a new record deal with Select Records, and the rest is history.
So was Do This My Way your first music video?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was.
How did you feel when you did your first music video? You know what I'm saying? Like,
it was exciting, but that wasn't my first music video. Not me personally.
Okay.
I got the bug and got what would you call fame and noticed a lot. My first music video was Salt and Pepper's Tramp. I played the Tramp in that video.
Is that why they were saying in well, I ain't gonna even say. Is that why you acted like that in all the house parties and all that?
Well, I was before that. I was that before all of that. I mean, my full name is Playboy, but close friends called me Play for short. So, you know, there were some interesting things that took place and summers that took place, but, you know, everybody knew me as Playboy. And when it was time to be Kid and Play, we just stuck with the short version because of the fact that, you know, close friends called me Play. I'll never forget the first time my name was official. I went to the very popular #1 club for hip hop at the time called the Latin Quarter. And DJ Red Alert was spinning that night. And when I walked in the door, I guess I underestimated what I was doing out there in them streets and whatever. I guess my name, you know, whatever you call it, preceded me.
Yeah, preceded.
And when I walked in the door on the microphone, you got my man Playboy in the house. And I was like, whoa, I'm official like this. But yeah, so Play is short for Playboy, and Kid's full name. We used to be, before we were Fresh Force, Kid and I were in 2 separate crews. I was in a crew called Quicksilver and the Super Lovers. And the theme to that group was all of the MCs had legendary lover names. Herbie Lovebug. A lot of people might not know, there was a lot of Disney movies called Herbie the Love Bug. It was about an actual Volkswagen, pretty much people's version, I guess, of Transformers. And then you had Prince Charm. That was our Hispanic representation, very good looking cat, curly hair, the whole nine. Hispanic representation doesn't get the credit it deserves in hip hop history, but in every major group, you know, you had Hispanic representation, whether it be an MC or a DJ. We had Romeo, who I had already mentioned to you, Jerome, and then our DJ was Quicksilver. So I had already had that persona going on through a very interesting series of events that took place in my life, and it was known in the neighborhood, and I guess kind of got out there in them streets. Kid was part of a group called the Turnout Brothers. His full name is actually The Kid Cool Out. So that's why we shortened to Kid, because everybody who knew him didn't call him that full mouth name. You know, that's a mouthful. We just call him Kid, but his full name is Kid Cool Out, or The Kid Cool Out. So then when it was time to get that deal with Select Records with Herbie, and it was time to come up with a name, so let's just call you Kid and Play. And it was funny because I was like, why is my name last? I can't be playing Kid. No, I think they tricked me because they were like, you know, well, more things rhyme with the word play. And I was like, okay. So yeah, so that's how that came about.
Okay. Was it the goal to have, you know, I guess what they would say, the clean image y'all had? Or did that just happen?
Play didn't have a clean image. Kid and Play, especially not in, you know, behind the scenes. What a lot of people don't realize was you had something called FFC relations then. You couldn't do music videos the way y'all know music videos now. So if someone's coming to you and saying, hey, we're ready to do this, pay you this much money, you're going to do this, you're going to travel or whatever, but these are the guidelines. What are you, stupid? You know what I'm saying? So we cursed like the rest of them. We got it, girls, like the rest of them. When we went on tour with everybody we've been on tour with, it was about who was getting the women and all of that. So like a Heavy D, like a Salt and Pepper and all of them before it, you had FCC guidelines. You couldn't do none of the stuff that's done on radio and television today. But if that's what people wanted to, if that's what they wanted to say or think of us, I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to go, no, I don't want that because I want to be hard, or you'll need to know how I'm really like. No, it's like, it's a job. It's like if you have a regular job, you know, you got to go by the employer's guidelines. You got to be in at 9, you get off at 5. This is what you got to wear. This is what you got to say. This is how you got to carry yourself. Now, when you go home, are you wearing that uniform? Are you acting like that? No, you're doing what you're doing for a paycheck. So, but, you know, I get it though. But, you know, I don't want to take on that whole clean thing because we weren't angels. I mean, even when you look at the movie House Party and stuff, that ain't no PG movie.
No, not at all.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, I get it though. I'm not disputing it, but you know, let's be kind of realistic about it, you know?
Yes. Okay. So where did the famous kick step move start from? You know, that everybody loved, everybody was doing.
We, Kid and I, like everyone else back then, loved to party, loved to dance. You know, dances was made up, things was done, you know, organically, impromptu. You do it by accident. It's like, hey, that's dope. Do it again, and you get a reaction. So really, it just came out of the synergy of a lot of the dancers that we loved, hung out with on the regular. The group in particular was a group called Nonstop with hi-hat, hi-hat, Swatch, and Little Bit. There's 3 young ladies. They're in that music video getting funky. And if there's a move they do in it that's kind of similar to the kick step, but it's not the same, but it involves the kind of swinging of the feet and the legs, which was very clever. So when it was time for us to finally get a break and do our first tour, which was called the Slammin' 88 tour, and the co-headliners was Salt-N-Pepa and Keith Sweat, and like one of the best tours ever. I mean, it was a huge tour with a lot of people on it. And when the gentleman who was also responsible, the promoter for that, he was also the promoter for the historical first rap concert or tour, which was called Fresh Fest. So he had this tour, Salt-N-Pepa being our sisters and our friends, they, you know, pretty much took us on this tour. So we were kind of like the opening act, but we were having music videos done then. And we very much wanted to have our dancers featured in our music videos to come on tour with us, but they weren't giving us that kind of money to afford it. So now Kid and I are forced knowing that anything we're going to do in front of people, they're going to expect what they saw from the music videos. So that's why we incorporated dancing in our shows and in our music videos and all of that. So that's how that came about.